meditative contemplation. So this is my suggestion of how you frame your thinking when it arises within your meditation practice. So it's a contemplative quality of your meditation practice. So it's not your regular mundane moment to moment, or maybe it feels like it is. But let's see if we can take our observation of the experience just that much deeper and start to consider all that activity which is occurring as being incredibly useful to us. That there's not one thing that's out of place. Everything is there for a very specific reason. Just like every hair on your head is there for a very specific reason, or not there for a very specific reason for that matter, depending on who you are. We have to be inclusive here with all thoughts, and hair and no hair. So then what does that mean? Well, that means many things. But one thing that it means is that it actually is a built-in ability to give yourself permission to relax. Give yourself permission to let go. Give yourself permission to become peaceful with it all. And then what does that manifest into? Because some of us are saying, yes, I have already achieved that with my own thought. I'm actually very comfortable with my own thought. Not just my own thought, but also the quality of space that emerges between thought. Well, what a next step is then to begin to peer into the quality of space that exists between the thought and increase the intensity that exists there. So the intensity that I'm talking about is something that is done with a form of concentration that is expansive rather than contracting. And through our ability to see, for instance, this whole room all at the exact same moment in a very inclusive way, but simultaneously allowing our gaze just to peer directly there in front of us and soften into the steadiness and allow the concentration to begin to naturally occur. And through this natural occurrence of steadying of our concentration, we develop the strength that is necessary in order to advance our meditative experience. What does an advancing meditation look like? Well, an advancing meditation is one that is increasing in its ability to become still, to become quiet. But within that quiet stillness is emerging this profound, and I'm using that word heavily. So there's some weight to it. What arises is something that is profound. So a profound understanding. And understanding and knowing are very closely related with each other. The known, so that which I know, is lending to a relationship with the everyday operating system of the human being. So I know that, therefore I can do. The understanding quality is something that goes much deeper than that which we already know. So to understand is then to open the door to the profound experience of that which is nature. To understand nature is not necessarily to know everything of nature, but it's to have access to it. So what begins to happen is an unlimiting relationship. And this unlimiting ability means that what you have with you at this moment in time, that you're working with, is actually what you're choosing to work with. So that means thought, emotion, personality, gifts, achievements, depth of meditation. So you choose that. In a very simple sense, we have access to everything which can be known. And in that knowing, we choose this. This which you are experiencing right now is a choice. And we can talk about that a little bit if you'd like, if there's any questions around it. And I'm sure that there is a bit, because that's a really big topic in and of itself. And it relates to your quality of meditation directly. So contemplate that just for a moment. And let's not be shy of the questions. Good. Yeah. That was your hand, I saw it. Yeah, I saw your hand. Come. Yeah, well, an internal question was coming. Good, Tess. Let's chat for a bit. Next time. Well, that's good. I'm glad that I'm a clear communicator. Okay. Yes, come sit here. So that then everyone at home can hear you.
But
yes,
that it's what we choose to do directly. Can you hear me okay? Because meditation because it's the quieting and it's the doing of, from the outside, it looks like doing nothing. We're reducing what we're actually doing.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a conscious choice to stop doing as much as we would normally do.
Sometimes. Mm-hmm. Sometimes. It's always a conscious decision, but sometimes it's in the realm of subconscious also. And in the relationship that begins to occur with that which you're working with within your meditation, it is directly experiencing that which is connected to your day-to-day. So sometimes it is choosing not to do, and other times it is choosing to do, and other times again it is choosing to do neither of those things. But it's that sort of spot in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And that place in the middle is where sometimes it gets more challenging, because it feels almost as though we cannot actually move forward because we are caught between two experiences. Does that make sense? That which we do and that which we do not. So meaning the full activity of the mind or the complete stillness quality of the mind. So it's this intermittent place.
Where you can calmly kind of observe things going
Calmly
by.
observe, yeah. So to develop that meditation, it's becoming increasingly more subtle as to how we relate to that activity which is occurring.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm. I like your nails.
Oh, thank you.
You're very welcome. What begins to happen with prolonged exposure to this quality of understanding that I'm speaking about is that life begins to orchestrate a very different set of sensations and also rules for you to follow by. And do you all know what I mean by rules to follow? I wonder how many of you like that word and how many of you dislike that word, rules. But it's quite a legitimate thing. There is actually things that you should do and act upon, and then there's others that you need to steer away from in order to be in accordance to the sensation and the vibration that exists within that sensation. So that's why they say that if an individual is working on the path of enlightenment, the higher they go, the sharper the razor's edge is that they walk on, the easier it is to slip. The lower the vibration, the wider the razor. It's very challenging to fall off. So as we increase in our subtlety, we're actually sharpening that edge. So for developing meditation practice, this is actually something to really recognize. The fact that your language makes a huge difference. Your body posture, the things that you choose to do or not to do in your day makes an incredible difference. And what we are examining and what we are dealing with is life itself. And that's the beauty of it, is that if you experience life as being a challenge in any way, shape, or form, then we have to acknowledge the activity that exists around the challenge. But as a society, we're in a perpetual state of denial that we have any role within that experience of challenge. But if we use challenge as an example, we also have to see the beauty, so the pleasure, the ease of that experience of life, and really begin to recognize, well, what is it that we are doing which is facilitating that? Now, this is rudimentary, and we learn this stuff at a very young age from our parents or from our communities. But as we get older, it seems that we begin to write our own rule book, which is incredibly good and important, so that then we are individuals who are experiencing this collective, and then simultaneously we are this collective who are experiencing this individual. So it's an important step within the whole process. But then to become this very soft but strong teacher with yourself, so that then you may achieve that which you wish to experience. And I can see it within your eyes that there is some inkling, some idea that you have which is formulating around what the experience of meditation is. And you are aligning that with the current experience that you have with the meditation. In some it's congruent, in others it's not. But what seems to maintain is this focal point. And it's generally quite high. It's generally quite lofty. So the question is, well, how do we attain that which you see within your mind's eye as being a meditative experience? And if meditation is what it says it is, then it is actually something that is absolutely natural. And if it is something that is natural, then that means it is the easiest thing to attain. And if there's any truth to the examples that they give for the ease and simplicity of the attainment, then all we really need to do is just simply surrender. Surrender to the most subtle experience of that which is occurring. But by surrendering to that subtlety, you're actually fully engaged with the direction of your meditation, because that's where it's found. In between all that which manifests as being something that you can define, meditation exists between all of that. It's an near undefinable sensation. And that is supported by wisdom traditions all over the world, which says that that subtle quality of space that's found within the stillness is literally where you come from. It is the answer. Yes.
I'm wondering if you could talk a little bit about if that's the definition, if you will, of what meditation is. Just sort of the contrast between states of pratyahara, of concentration, and how that stands apart from meditation, and maybe the steps that exist between those.
Sure. Well, pratyahara means to withdraw the senses away from that which is distracting. And the distraction is something that occurs from the external reality, and that's primarily what we focus on first. So we create a quiet space, beautiful cushion, nice smell, to help us draw inwards, away from any sound that will pull us out. But now the second stage to that is the activity within the mind. And that's considered also the external. And that's the next quality, that we begin to become very quiet so that it no longer distracts us. Same idea. A very specific smell, a very specific taste, a very specific sound, a very specific sight. So all the senses are actually involved within that which you are experiencing as the increasing subtlety. Now, to go even deeper, it speaks to that which you define as being separate is considered pratyahara. So at the moment where you can no longer define that you are separate, that's the authentic resting place for a pratyahara practice. So who am I, who am I, who am I, who am I? And if we can maintain language around who we are, then we're still working within the depths of this pratyahara. Now this should be really encouraging, because every step along the way has profound gifts that are given to the one who is engaging. Right? Nature is so beautiful. A flower is just sitting there in full bloom, but if nobody notices it, it just simply stays there in its radiance. But as soon as you see that flower and you smell that flower, it's an incredible gift. So nature is like that. Again, we're a part of nature, so there's already existing gifts inside of you that are being ready and waiting for your engagement. So that pratyahara is quieting down and preparing the space for concentration. And the concentration is really coming from the mind. but we have to see the mind as being an all-encompassing sensory experience. So it's not just some mysterious abstract piece that we have somewhere inside of our head, but rather it's felt throughout the entire body. It has a scent, it has a taste, it has a sound, it has a sight. And the more we allow ourselves, and that's that surrender part, the more we allow ourselves to see that we are embodying our mind, then the greater capacity we have to stimulate concentration. And concentration is the essential component of developing a meditation practice. And from the development of that practice, moving the practice deeper forward into that transcending quality that begins to occur, where we begin to bypass it all and we connect to something that is higher than that which we have defined as being mind and body. Now it goes even deeper than that into the meditative quality, and that meditation is found once again within that dynamic stillness. That's where the direction is. So if we're ever wondering where to find the depths of meditation, all we must do is realize that we flow just like the river. We do. You have rivers, channels moving all through you. Channels. All of us have channels moving through us. And the more we can surrender to that simple fact, the greater ability we have to make it towards this ocean. And sit on the beach and just simply observe the waves as they roll in. And that's that contemplative, meditative state where we still have thoughts, but the thoughts are not in any way, shape, or form interrupting the meditation that we are engaging with. And as we become ready, we surrender to such a point that as the tide rises, comes in, it actually overtakes our body and takes us deep into this ocean. And that's where the bliss is found. Deep inside the ocean as we surrender. Almost like a peaceful death to all that we are holding on to. And it becomes the sweetest nectar, the deepest rest. But it is all tied into the northern magnetism of your inner compass that is on a continuous basis pushing you towards realizing who you are, why you're here, and where you come from. These are major questions that we ask on a continuous basis. So these are some of the steps and stages.
That's great. That's beautiful.
Thank you. Easy. But to bring it back into the mundane without losing any of that depth and relaxation and beauty that we're working with, it's accepting the fact that there is... Do you ever read the Tao? You guys ever look at the Tao, Lao Tzu? It's a very beautiful piece of writing, very simple, incredibly simple. And it's the salt of the earth that I look at it as being a yogic text, but the most salt of the earth level of the yogic texts. It's just simple. And one of the pieces of wisdom that you'll find within the Tao is that first we must realize we're sick before we can get well. And that maybe at first listening sounds daunting or something that you disagree with. But as you start to use it as a contemplative tool, it's actually simply taking responsibility for that which you have created, that who you are. Taking responsibility for that. And not blindly, but with eyes wide open. All eyes, all senses. And developing a way to communicate with yourself so that then you start to do the correct things at the correct time. Just like nature. So if winter becomes summer and summer becomes winter, things are going to get incredibly confusing around here. So somehow it's always arriving on time with some variations that we as the experiencer have opinions about, but potentially nature itself has no opinion on whether it rains or not rains, whether it's windy or whether it's calm. It just is. So it's that level of openness that we want to create for ourselves in relation to our own mind, our own body, the synergy that exists between the two, that will enable us to surrender all of our thought and even our emotion, placing them on the clouds and watching them float on by. So it's developing a ability to say yes when it's appropriate to say yes, and to say no when it's appropriate to say no, and do not mix the two. It's divine timing that we're dealing with here. You are that. There's a whole book called I Am That. It's about this thick. It's a very thick piece of writing. And it outlines over and over and over and over again the simplicity that you are, and within that simplicity, the complexity that emerges from that simplicity. And you share the example of that every single time you wake up. Simplicity to complexity, but complexity to simplicity. So what is it that you're choosing? So this training ground is found within your meditation, so that then the actions are reflecting that which you're experiencing within your meditation. And then the actions which you are engaged with are actually facilitating the depth of your meditation. So remember, we're channels that are flowing, and the more we can rest into that simple fact, the easier it all becomes. So this is also related to the fact that you are part of the decision-making process. And the aspect that I'm challenging within you is that component that is looking and sees, but has not quite gotten there yet. Like that piece that is looking and seeing and wishes to achieve that. Now, two questions is why and how. Why would you want to achieve it? Does it fall under the category of grasping or wanting or egoic tendency? Or is it genuine? Genuine meaning, is it coming from the deep well and source of wisdom that you've been carrying with you from one life to the next? Or from one decade to the next? So it's that long game. You might have had your first inklings of this when you were very young, but it seems to maintain with you as the ideal. So if you have an ideal and it's coming from a very pure place, and how we develop that purity is we just keep throwing it into the fire. what can withstand fire? Not much at all. So if that which you keep throwing into the fire is able to survive it, and that which survives is just the essence of that which you are developing as your sight, then over time it becomes weighted in this understanding that this known component, this knowledge, is feeding off of. So understanding is this expansion, right? That known, unknown, continuously unknown, but is completely supportive. So that which we know is what we've chosen to know at this moment in time. But we have the capacity to see it all, to feel it all, and to understand it all. So this is a meditation practice which is deepening. This is the conversation of how to deepen your practice. Does this make sense? Maybe some more questions. It doesn't have to be on topic per se, it can be about anything. I have a few good recipes, depending on what you want. I'm good at juices. Namaste. Why? Mm-hmm.
For me, it's like this outside game, this thing we call real, is very, very precarious. It's all over the place. And it draws you left and right. You're like a cork in the ocean, just bouncing everywhere. And the meditation that you've been teaching us seems to steady that cork. Seems to give it a little bit more buoyancy and steadiness, even in some rough waters. And I'm speaking from experience. I went through some rough waters, and the cork kept me steady. And so, if anything, meditation is a great tool to navigate as channels towards the steadiness of the water.
Mm-hmm.
For me, I'm really blessed that I come here and I learn about the depth of meditation, the depth of yoga, how important it is for me, because sometimes you feel not part of a society out there. Not everyone is doing meditation, not everyone is doing yoga, they're chasing tails and all these other things. So, I don't take this for granted, and I take it with gratitude that these are gifts that come to us, and the chance to learn this is really phenomenal. I just want to express that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mm-mm. Is that? Well, thank you. You know, I'm in a very loving, kind way going to add to what you're saying a little bit. And specifically, it's around what's happening in society. And society itself, every human being on the planet is actually engaged within the process of yoga. So yoga on the most broad spectrum, meaning every individual on the planet is moving towards that source experience. And the chasing tails is actually for a very specific reason. It's for an incredibly important reason. And The reason is defined by the individual, not as the individual mind, but as the individual who is encountering that particular life experience. Because we have to see it as a tapestry, and we have to get every square on that tapestry in order to have completion. So if we think of it in terms of, in order to get this full level of realization and understanding, if you work with reincarnation, if you don't, then I can frame it a different way for you. But in order to get to that full level of realization, we have to have as many births as there are experiences to have. So therefore, every single experience is actually perfect in its placement for that particular birth. And the second thing is that every human being is actually resting at a level of meditation because it's of nature, it's natural. But there's levels to it. And we always, especially in the West, we want to see everything as even as possible, playing field, but it's really not. It's actually quite diverse. And the engagement of this meditation is only existent because it is of nature. So just like everyone takes an inhale and an exhale, but each inhale, exhale is at a different rate, depth, and precision. So an individual who is engaging now with a meditation practice is one whose precision of meditation is going to increase, and the quality of the relationship is then going to flourish, just like anything. So it's important to make that distinction. Mm-hmm. Yes, Kirsty. You have a question? She does. She's just shy. She has so many in there. She's just not yet ready. I am in the back row. It's amazing what begins to happen when we just let go a little bit and say yes when we're supposed to say yes and say no when we're supposed to say no, and stop confusing them. Just stop confusing them, because actually one is distinctly saying yes and one is distinctly saying no. But there's a thing called addiction that looks like that. It's a loop. This is very nice, isn't it? But it's still a circle, and I can't find the breaking point to get out, no matter how beautiful it is. And addiction can surface. It doesn't have to be in something that you drink or a person that you keep being attracted to. It's found inside your head, inside your mind, and its tendencies. And we are becoming aware of them, especially if you actually have a formal seated meditation practice, you're becoming aware of them. And they are not able to survive fire very well. You put alcohol onto fire, what happens? It actually gets bigger. It increases the strength of the flame. So if what you are addicted to, you put into the fire, it burns very quickly. It burns very quickly. It's not challenging. But we have to convince ourselves that yes means yes and no means no. And then the meditation begins to really gain momentum. Momentum is found through consistent engagement into your practice. Consistent engagement into your practice But the practice is not necessarily just sitting and closing the eyes. The practice is very specific. It's very specific in how you are seeing that which is in front of you. How are you seeing that which is in front of you? Are you seeing it with lenses of idea and judgment? Or are you removing those lenses and witnessing that from the purest space possible? And it doesn't matter because you're in one of those categories. It doesn't even matter. But if you are that which is removing the lenses, then that's the surrendering practice. And the more you can just simply see that very subtle vibration just there in front of you, then the less of a hold that particular lens has, which may influence the way that you see the space. And the exact same practice exists for the individual who is now beyond that and is resting in a pure witness state. It's endless. There is no depth. There is no bottom to this depth. There is no ceiling to the height. It is actually on a continuous level learning, growing, changing, evolving. It is intelligence. I am much smarter now than I was 10 years ago, 5 years ago, 1 year ago. So my intelligence is connected to that universal intelligence. My limitations, if I have one, or any, is based upon my relationship to that intelligence. Like I know 1 + 1 = 3. And that's the level of my intelligence. And nobody had to tell me that. I came to it on my own. You know what I mean? Let's close our eyes. It's nice and warm in here. The AC is not working. I'll use my intelligence and fix it a little bit later. Let's bring full, deep breaths into the body. Keeping the eyes closed, bring your gaze just there into the space. That quality of space is found just in front of the moment that you realize that you're looking at something. Just in front of the moment where you realize you can actually see. Right there. And maintain uninterrupted. And this is training for the mind and the senses. To be able to make a request of a new form of activity from the mind that is no longer interrupting the flow of your meditation practice. Keeping the eyes closed, soften the gaze. And very slowly and gently, we allow our eyes to open. Easy. It's very easy. This is yes, this is no. Allow them to clearly communicate. Life is of nature, you are of nature, all things are natural, naturally flowing, as given example within our own body. So we also flow not just in the fluids within the body, but also the rhythm of the breathing, the way that the thoughts roll in and out, the quality of the mind itself. So now to become increasingly more conscious of that fact and forging a relationship to that quality which you say is the meditative experience. That which you see is so profound in its importance because it's the truth. But now we must train the eyes, the ears, the nose, the tongue to fully be enveloped within that which you are experiencing. And it comes through you putting it into the fire again and again and again, which is your discernment. And discernment arises through your ability to connect in deep with yourself. So that then what manifests over time is the pure example of that which you see, which is the truth. And everything flows towards that direction. What you see, what you feel, all is flowing towards that ocean. But it could be a pond. You thought, oh, this is the ocean, but it's a pond. But then there's a little inlet, or whatever it's called, outlet, from the pond into another river, into a body of water, and so on and so on. Profound. You are so profound. You wake up. This is amazing. You wake up every day. And then you choose, which is even more spectacular. And every day your choices are increasing in their ability to be good for you. I am actually more healthy than I was 10 years ago, even though I'm 10 years older. Because my choices are becoming refined. It's pretty amazing stuff. Human technology. So now, just like all of the technology is increasing in its ability, this internal technology is increasing in its ability. The difference is that it's already built in, and it just reveals itself in segments. We don't even have to build anything. It's already been built. That's also very profound. So good job, everyone. You're here. Very good. All right. I don't want to give you too much excitement in one evening, so enjoy, and we'll continue this meditation party next week. Thank you very much, everyone. Namaste.